those don't look all that great, do they? I actually kind of want to purposely make sure that I showed you those vents there and what they're venting out. Yeah. Welcome to Gnomergan. Yeah. We'll talk a bit more about why that is in just a bit. So you get summoned to the summoning stone. Ah, here's the elevator. We're doing this on my Dwarven Death Knight for a couple of reasons. One, because I thought, well, if I'm going to do this with any race, either a gnome or a dwarf would be appropriate. This is the only dwarf that I have at max level. I have another dwarf, Paladin, but he's like level 40. I do have a gnome, but she's like level 22, and my mecha gnome is still like level 20. So this was basically the only option. So, and he's not very geared, but of course he doesn't need to be. So.
Greetings.
Carbon's a blast. Teleportation solutions engineer at your service.
Off and away.
Alright, I don't really need to do that thing.
Silly, those are not for when you enter, those are for when you're trying to leave.
Can I help you? Goodbye now.
I wonder if I'm gonna encounter any brand new gnome players here. Yeah. It's funny, it shows two different entrances here. I'm pretty sure the entrance is supposed to be like right over here. There's a daily right here? What is this? Oh, it's a pet tamer. Oh. Yeah.
Making a special purchase? You have a great day now. Would you like to purchase something? Be
okay.
seeing you.
Welcome to Gnomergan.
Hey.
If only I could get to the launch bay. Give me one, just one of those beautiful airborne machines and I could retake Gnomergan and scare the goggles off of B.E. Baracus at the same time. If you need another parachute, we've stored some in chests near the drop points. How did you get in here? No, it doesn't matter. I'm Murdoch of the G team. We're the best there is, and we're here to retake Gnomergan. When nobody else could help him, the High Tinker found and hired us. But we simply can't do this alone. You're an honorary G Team Commando now. Take this parachute. Jump down straight ahead into the Hall of Gears and kill the vicious Fallout. After you're done, report to Commando B. Baracus by the West Hallway. You two will get along great, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah, we'll get to that one in just a bit. First, I'm going to show you an optional boss that a lot of people just outright ignore. So whenever I get this dungeon, the majority of the time people will come right here, and they will jump right off. And how you get extra parachutes is this right here. They'll use this, they'll jump right off, activate the parachute, and just glide down to the bottom to face the boss that is down there waiting for us. But we will get to that later. So these are trogs. Yeah, they're irradiated trogs. They're pillagers. Hold on, let me get Alud on. Now, for those of you who don't know, you're probably going, why are they irradiated? Well, that's because this place has a lot of radiation in the atmosphere. In the area. This is an underground city. This is a city that the gnomes lived in for a long, long time. And the trogs, well, they have been kind of natural enemies of the gnomes and even the dwarves for a long time as well. I say also the dwarves because the dwarves and gnomes have been friends for centuries and have a pretty close relationship. After all, both their cities are I mean, you could say that the dwarf city, Ironforge, is in a mountain, but you could also technically say it's underground. because it's covered up by ground. Anyways. This has to do with the history of this place and why the Trogs have overrun this place and it's being ruled by someone else. And why the gnomes are basically refugees having to seek, aid from the dwarves as well as the rest of the Alliance. I'll probably try and talk a bit more about this as this goes underway, because I will have to wait a bit.
Hey,
Oh, thank the light you're here. I'll accept help from a two-headed ogre at this point. The city has been overrun by trogs. The attempts to wipe them out resulted in mass contamination, but there is still hope. Our scientists who evacuated to Ironforge are working on a cure for the fallout sickness. Meanwhile, if you can help me stop the trog invasion, perhaps the city can be retaken.
off and away.
With your help, I can evaluate these tunnels. Let's see if we can find out where these trogs are coming from and put a stop to the invasion. Yeah. Why do I still have this? Such devastation. What a horrible mess.
Yep. This ain't even the worst of it. So, while we do this, I should probably,
It's quiet here.
talk a bit about what happened here. So, I believe this happens around the time of Warcraft 3 because a lot of people are asking, where were the gnomes during Warcraft 3? Well, they were dealing with what was happening down here.
Truck incursion! Defend me while I blast the hole closed!
So, anyways. The story of this place really has to do with, of course, our final boss. And we should take a moment to talk about him before we really continue here. To kind of get an idea as to why this place is in its current condition. Mechgineer Thermoplug. So, Thermoplug was a very brilliant gnome, but he was also a very ambitious gnome. As in, he was someone who wanted to make the gnomes greater than they've ever been, and we will make gnomes greater than any other race in the world. Even, and we won't need those filthy dwarves, and yeah, he didn't necessarily care that much about the actual, well-being of the gnomes or being a good leader for the gnomes. He just wanted to be king, and yeah, that's, was his great ambition, basically. Fire in the hole! Yeah, we've got another one over here, So, because of this, he wanted to really push for being selected by the gnomes as their new High Tinker. However, the people of the gnomes who are mainly a big factor in selecting the new High Tinker did not like what they saw from Thermoplug because they basically saw that he wanted it too much. He was someone who desired the leadership position, too much. They saw his ambition and they realized it was not a good thing. It's kind of the opposite of, like how, how they say sometimes the better leader is the one who doesn't desire that power, that, they're more humble than that. They're not someone who, is craving for a leadership, position of power. It's one of the things that some of us Horde players would say back in the day about Sourfang, that we used to think that Sourfang would have made a great war chief because he was someone who didn't desire that power. And this is not just a Warcraft thing. This is in other forms of fiction as well. I know there are other examples of this. I'm just having a difficult time remembering specific examples. But it would usually be the case that if, that the better leader was someone who he knew what it was like to not have that kind of power and such. Okay, so here's the first boss. He's coming up here.
Too far away. I need a target.
Yeah. I'll read about that in just a second. So,
Nice work! I'll set off the charges to prevent any more Trogs from making it to the surface. Fire in the hole!
Oh, give me a second. I gotta fix this. Got the wrong pet out. There we go. There we go. Always gotta have the matching whelpling with what Speck of Death Knight you're playing.
Superb! Because of your help, my people stand a chance of retaking our beloved city. 3 cheers to you!
Yeah, we'll see about that. Anyways, so they saw through Thermoplug's ambition, and they did not trust Thermoplug being their new High Tinker. They were very cautious and wary about what he would do in that kind of position of power. So, I'm going to go ahead and show you an extra area. We're instead of going straight to the next boss while I talk about this. So, they ended up going with Mechatork. You know, the guy that we know today. And Thermoplug actually did not do the expected, oh, how could you, you know, all that stuff. He didn't, like, rant and rave or anything. He actually ended up playing it very cool. He actually went the route of trying to win over Mechatork and putting him in a different position of power to sort of influence whatever decisions Mechatork might make by trying to, like, subtly win his trust, his favor, and become his high advisor. So he did. He tricked Mechatork into trusting him and giving him a position of being a very high advisor. So around the time of, if I believe the timeline's correct, I think this is true, but I might be wrong. I believe around the time of Warcraft 3, the Trogs were becoming a very large problem for the gnomes. As you can see, they were, you know, causing a very big problem for the gnomes. And Mechatork wanted to seek help from the allies they had, including the dwarves. So this is a cool little, like, dormitory area for the gnomes. One of the rooms here I really want to show because it gives an idea of what I'm talking about here. Not that one. Ah, here. So check this out. So this is like a dormitory kind of room. What I love about this is look at the beds. They're on slanted surface, but they've got a ladder, and they've set it up where it's still going to be flat. Because could you imagine laying on a bed that was slanted like that? I could not be able to do that. So they made it where they could still be able to sleep on a bed that is still level. Very nice touch there. So anyways. So Mechatork wanted to seek help from the allies, including the dwarves, and, you know, probably the rest of the, you know, whatever alliance was around at the time. However, Thermoplug went the route of, as a advisor, more like a Grand Vizier, like Jafar, trying to persuade him to go a different way, mainly using the likes of logic. I guess we could just go ahead and do this other boss right over here and then make our way back. He basically put it as... Oh, hold on a second.
Welcome to Matrix Puncherath, 3005-B, a security level beta terminal. You must possess a yellow punch card to access terminal functions.
Yeah, that sounds like something from the days of vanilla. Oh, actually we just made our way down. So this is the alternate way. Usually people will just grab a parachute and fall down here. Instead, we just went the long way, just so I could show you guys the rest of the area. So, anyways, don't need that parachute after all. But yeah, right. So he basically was saying things like, you know, that those, you know, the surfacers have their own problems and issues that they are dealing with right now. This burning thing, or whatever it's called. We have our own problems, and we need to deal with it as gnomes. You know, so it was something along those lines. And he persuaded Mechatork to use something that they had in the city that was very powerful but very dangerous and devastating to try and stop the Trogs. He convinced him that yes, it would cause loss of gnomes' lives, but if they didn't do it, all gnomes would die. So because of that, he basically helped Mechatork end up being in a corner, and once he was in that corner, he was more susceptible to agree to it. So let me deal with this boss real quick. Actually, I forgot. Let me go ahead and read the stuff for the first two bosses here. So the Trog boss we just fought was Grubbus. The radioactive gas that flooded the city was meant to anger the Trogs and kill the gnomes, and Thermoplug's plan was brutally effective. One Trog, however, reacted oddly to the substance. Grubbus grew and grew. It was a side effect that Sicko had not anticipated, but he's never been one to waste valuable and dangerous resources. This giant Trog now patrols the tunnels of Gnomergan. His loyal basilisk pet Chomper helps Grubbus sniff out gas leaks, tasty fungi, and even tastier intruders. So yeah, Thermoplug's first name is Sicko. Fitting. This is Viscous Fallout. The formerly robust and elegantly complex waterways of Gnomergan are now an irradiated mess filled with toxic slime. A lone water elemental who had dwelt in the gnome's aquifer became trapped in the contamination, and the pollution corrupted its pure form. It currently wanders the halls of Gnomergan in anger and agony, a liquid embodiment of the vile poison of Thermoplug's betrayal. Yeah. So, the journal is somewhat kind of getting ahead of where I was. So, yeah, what he wanted him set off was a nuke. Yes, they basically had a radiated bomb in the city. So Mechatork set it off, and it devastated the city. And this is the real kicker here. 80% of the entire gnome population died. I really want to kind of emphasize this. 80%. Just think about this for a second. Imagine if, I can't give you exact numbers, but imagine if 80% of Earth's population was gone, like that. And just 20% was left over of our human population. That doesn't even count for however much of the remaining 20% would have been contaminated by that radiation and cause who knows what. Almost kind of like a Fallout situation, right? In terms of the game series. Somewhat. So, yeah, they had to evacuate, and about 5% or so of that became what are called leper gnomes, including Thermoplug. And, well, I'll get more, when we actually reach him, because that's who we're here to stop.
Greetings.
I hope that wasn't too much for you. The mission is far from over. That Murdoch is crazy, Death Knight. Wait, you know what a Death Knight is? Oh wait, of course you would. This is Cataclysm. Never ever let you find yourself in an aircraft with that gnome. Stealth usually isn't my thing, and it's certainly not going to be yours. Go down this hallway to the launch bay and dispose of the Electrocutioner 6000. The Electrocutioner is in charge of the aircraft, and I hate aircraft. I'm not getting in any sort of aircraft. Use this parachute to drop down afterwards and speak with Commando Face for your next job.
Be seeing you.
Now, I want to make sure I don't skip a boss here. Ah, okay. So I think... Okay. So I think I can figure out the way to get to that. Okay. So that's the launch bay. And when I drop down, I should be able to head this way to the other boss. Okay. I just want to make sure I don't skip one of the bosses in here, so. But yeah, this is why it has this whole radiation problem throughout the entire city while we're constantly dealing with it, and why we've encountered numerous enemies here, including Trogs that are irradiated. And that's why you saw the green smoke being filtered out of those vents when we were outside, because they have been trying to see if they can actually vent this place out of radiation, ever since. Now, there actually was an event at the beginning of Cataclysm where I believe it was called something along the lines of the retaking of Gnomergan. It was one of those pre-patch events, so it's not in the game anymore. It was one of those, this is one thing I do like about the pre-launch events, or, pre-patch events. Either one, you can call them either one. By the way, you can see there's, Leprous assistants. You can see kind of what Leprous are like. There's, green skin. It's kind of decaying, so. But, gosh, I think I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, the pre-launch events. So, I do like pre-launch events. I do get why they can be limited time things, but at the same time, for like story and lore purposes, for people who didn't experience them when it started, because it basically one of those, it's kind of similar to what we're going to be experiencing soon with the pre-patch for Shadowlands. It's basically what the Teldrassil event was for BFA, that whole pre-launch event, which is no longer in the game. I get it, but at the same time, I wish there was a way to actually re-experience it, just to, share the story and the lore, where there was a couple of specific events, one of which was on the Horde. I believe it had to do with the trolls, if I recall correctly, specifically the Darkspear, and some of the other stuff going on with the trolls in Cataclysm. And the other was the retaking of Gnomergan, when you were going to be with this sickness clouds my vision, but I know that you must be a trog. Die, foul invader! Yeah. Who knows what the radiation is doing to these guys. It's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. Mechgineer Thermoplug is not a patient gnome. Rather than putting his inventions through a battery of tests to determine their safety and effectiveness, he rushes them into the field and moves on to the next project. The Electrocutioner 6000 was his first attempt at harnessing electricity as a weapon via a supercharged mechano tank. Lieutenant Tom Sizzlepants Crankle, the only soldier to survive piloting the Electrocutioner, is now something of a hero among the leper gnomes.
Electric justice!
Here's another good shot of a leper gnome there. Look at that. Right, let me get my pet out of the way.
Interrupt.
Yeah,
Interrupt.
just a couple of very simple mechanics. Like I said, this was a dungeon back from the days of vanilla, so it's kind of like what I was saying about Wailing Caverns. Pretty simple mechanics here. Though Thermoplug did have one mechanic that I've heard that you had to dedicate one person to taking care of, but I'll discuss that when we get there. Let me see if I can find the other optional boss here. I just gotta remember how to get to him because no one ever wants to do it. Anytime there's like an optional boss, good luck trying to get the entire group to actually want to go do it. Unless it's like very conveniently placed for you to go take care of. I'm hoping I'll find it here. Otherwise I may have to just go down just to find the other pathway. Let us see. But yeah, to this day, the gnomes have not actually reclaimed Gnomergan. But then the question comes up with, well, even if they do come in here, clear out all the trogs, and officially reclaim it for themselves, how long is it going to take for them to actually, like, vent this place out of all this radiation? Like, how suitable and livable is this city going to be for the gnomes going forward? I mean, at this point, you have to consider, maybe you should just give up on Gnomergan as a location to live because of the radiation and just simply find something else to be your new home. This is the Crowd Pummeler 960. In Gnomergan's heyday, inventors would compete for status by pitting their creations against one another. The mechgineer Oglethorpe Obnocticus built an unbeatable robot. This earned him respect in the High Tinker's Court. This sounds like BattleBots to me, and I loved that show. Sicko Thermoplug stole Obnocticus's blueprints and then made a giant version of the machine. He set his forgery loose, and the horrific results drove the ruling council to banish the innocent Obnocticus. The Crowd Pummeler 960 is still one of Thermoplug's favorite stolen inventions. Wasn't that just great? Yeah, another great showcase for Thermoplug, and what a great guy he is. So yeah, hardly anyone ever comes over here to fight this boss. They usually just go straight for Thermoplug.
Knocking back.
Yeah, so he's got a, a smash to do damage. Another one that can be interrupted. Yeah. So. Alright, so now let's make our way back. To the bottom area of the launch bay. Haven't used any of the parachutes. Let's be honest, the parachutes are for the people who wanted to skip stuff. As opposed to actually running through and actually seeing Gnomergan.
Pleased to meet you.
Well, it took you long enough. Get behind the pillar with me before you blow our cover. I'd keep my distance from B.E. Baracus. And Murdoch, neither is terribly stable. You are those, so let's get you to work. Go down to this tunnel until you get to Tinker's Court. Hopefully you'll know what to do when you meet Mechgineer Thermoplug. Our leader, Commando Hannibal, waits somewhere in there. He'll reward you handsomely for all your work. Probably. Yeah.
Daylight's burning.
So this little gauntlet is always a little fun. So you usually want to avoid drawing the attention of these because they are elites. Now these are labeled elites as well, but these are supposed to be the usual trash we take care of. By the way, there are dark irons here. Because, yes, Thermoplug actually worked alongside the Dark Irons in order to help manipulate this situation to happen in regards to getting Mechatork to set off the bomb. Ooh, a grime-encrusted ring. You have uncovered what appears to be a ring from the corpse of one of the Dark Iron Dwarves. It's difficult to tell what kind of ring it is. However, dirt and hardened residue cake the item completely, making wearing it impossible. You think you can make out the slight luster of precious metal and maybe even the glint of a gem under the residue. If you're going to make use of this ring, you're going to need to find something to get the hardened residue off of it. Well, that's very specific. Huh. Apparently you can go turn this into someone. Right outside. I am now exalted with Gnomergan! Intruder alert. Intruder alert. Yeah, I've run this dungeon several times. Like I said, 2 of the bosses I've shown you, no one ever does. All anyone ever does is Fallout, Electrocutioner, and Thermoplug. So yes, this is Tinker's Court. And this is Thermoplug. Let me see if I can actually get you a better shot of him. That, of course, is his mech. I want to show you... Okay. That might be as good as I'm ever going to get. Right there. Full-on Leopardome at this point. Alright, let me read his thing. Murderer, traitor, and self-proclaimed king of the gnomes, the mech-engineer Psychothermoplug rules over the radioactive halls of Gnomergan with a malfunctioning iron fist. His subjects are numerous, vicious, and insane enough to defend their crazed king against any intrusion from the upper world. It is Thermoplug's madness that makes him so dangerous. He possesses the cunning to destroy everything around him, with no thought for his own life. There is a reason that even the monsters of Gnomergan fear him. So, one of the reasons why he's in that mech is not just because he wants to use a powerful mech. It's because he doesn't have any legs anymore. I'm serious, by the way. He actually ended up in a fight with Mechatork. Mechatork curb stomped him, because of course he did. And then Mechatork chopped his legs off. Now, he allowed him to get back into his mech. And I believe the quote that Mechatork said was, "It's fitting that the Trogs now have one of their own to rule them." Yeah, quite a burn from Mechatork there. But if you want an idea as to how I was talking about his ambition, just listen to what he says when we pull him.
Usurpers! Gnomergan is mine!
The first, one of the main, Gnomergan is mine! Mine! I really would have loved it if they just let him, just keep saying that over and over again, just to show how obsessed he is with, being king of Gnomergan. That this was his ultimate goal and, desire. So yeah, there are bombs that come out of those things. I've heard that one of the main things you had to do was have someone dedicated just to dealing with the bombs. Yeah, so yeah, he's got a few different mechanics. Steam blast, pound. Steam blast does fire damage, knocks him back. Pound, does damage, disorients him for a couple seconds. Blast his current target with a wheel. Alright, so here's Steam Blast. Yeah, there you go. Activates a nearby bomb assembly, causing it to periodically release walking bombs that will attack a random player and continue to spawn until the red switch on the side of the assembly is activated. So that's what those red buttons over there are for, to try and turn those things off.
Interrupt.
That is for all the gnomes that you murdered. Because that's what he basically did. When he tricked Mechatork to setting off that bomb, as far as I'm concerned, that 80% of the gnomish population that died, that's on him. Their blood is on his hands. Thermoplug. So good riddance to bad rubbish, I say.
Interesting.
I'd love for you to come aboard as a full G-Team commando, but you have other adventures to pursue. I'm sure we'll meet again, and I hope that you will have considered joining by then. Here's something for your trouble.
You have a great day now.
So yeah, storyline-wise, we've dealt with Thermoplug, tried to retake Gnomergan back in Cataclysm. It was a failure. And they have not done anything about Gnomergan since. And I feel like the devs have just completely forgotten about Gnomergan, or they have reached the conclusion and just haven't come out and said that Gnomergan is just never going to get reclaimed because, well, it's completely contaminated with nuclear radiation. And it's underground, which makes it even harder to vent out the nuclear air because it's underground. So, it's not out in the open like Stormwind, for example. So, yeah. Who knows if the gnomes will ever reclaim their home, but it's also very likely they may just decide to just find somewhere new. Who knows? So I will figure out where we will be heading next when we return. Stay tuned.